Good morning. I am Bev Curtis with Bev and Company here at House of Brokers Realty, and I want to welcome you this morning to our breakfast with Bev. This morning, I have the pleasure to be here with Marla Portra. And Marla, would you like to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about what you do in our team?
Sure. So, good morning. I'm Marla, and I serve as our team's client care representative. And I also assist with a lot of the marketing as well.
Fantastic. And she's done a super job, and she's been with us now almost 2.5 years now.
Yeah.
So time is definitely passing, that's for sure. So the topic that we're going to talk about this morning is a question that gets asked a lot. It's like, how's the market doing? So technically, the spring market has sprung. And so it's kind of like, now what? What happens in the real estate market next?
Yeah.
So Marla's going to kind of share with us kind of some points to discuss, and then we're going to kind of fill in the gaps on what we should do, where we are, where we've been in the spring market, and kind of take it from there.
Yeah, absolutely. So at this point, we have kind of really jumped into the spring market. It's starting to taper off a little bit. So I think first off, why don't you, Bev, just give us a recap here of what's been going on in our spring market?
Well, I think a lot of us are well aware that it's been a very long winter and a very short spring. And it looks like the heat is definitely starting to heat up outside as far as summer goes. School just got out this week. So we're kind of like entering into a brand new cycle in the real estate market. And so we're in that summer session that we're approaching. So the recap, I think, is that spring sales, I think, were once again very robust. We did have a fair amount of inventory on the market in all price ranges. The price range that was obviously the most desirable for a lot of folks is kind of that 250 and below range. That is the market where we received lots of multiple offers. Properties went under contract either the same day or the next day, and it was definitely a competing situation. So one had to be careful not to overpay on a property and certainly make some good decisions. I think it's also a time where there's been lots of new construction that's completed. So that inventory that's like that 350 and above up into that 500 range has been completed now. And there's definitely some inventory that's sitting on the market that definitely needs to be absorbed. And then you kind of got that middle pocket that's there, kind of that move up buyer, and that 250 up to that 350, 400 range, that a fair amount of inventory is sold. There's still a fair amount of inventory left. And so now it's a matter of kind of deciphering, where do the sellers and buyers go next?
Yeah, absolutely. So, and that's our next question. What is next? So school's out now. We've got Memorial Day weekend coming up here, our holiday weekend. Like Bev mentioned, we've got a big change in the seasons, big change in the market. So now what?
Well, I have to say Memorial Day weekend kind of kicks off the summer session. And that's when all the pools open up, summer's in full swing, and that's when basically the summer market is in full gear. So now the kind of hats change just a little bit. There are some sellers that perhaps maybe didn't get their home sold in the spring market and really wanted to or needed to. There are some folks now that can actually prepare to get their home on the market because school is over and now they've got some time, and frankly, the weather is now cooperating where you can go outside and do a lot of those projects. So I think it's also a time to consider that with the inventory that's on the market and that will still be coming on the market, the pricing tends to shift as well. So I think as the cycles change, there's also a stair stepping down in the pricing as well. And so that's kind of what we're entering into, and we're starting to see a number of price reductions, I think, in all price ranges. Once again, that 250 and below still remains very robust. And there's lots of buyers out there. The demand is very high, and there's still a shortage of inventory there. But in the higher price brackets, it tends to be a little bit more inventory than probably we would like to see right now.
Yeah. So this leads into my next question then. So if I am a seller right now, so say I had my house on the market this spring, for whatever reason, it didn't sell this spring. Or maybe I'm a seller who's just now preparing my house to put on the market here at the end of spring, early summer. So what do I do now? What's my game plan going forward?
Okay. That's actually a great question, because actually this week we have received a number of phone calls from expired listings, so to speak. So a listing that's been on the market that for some reason did not successfully sell is considered an expired listing. And so that's when basically our team would go out and analyze the property with a fresh set of eyes. Many times we'll bring in a professional stager just as a third party objective opinion to the property. They're looking at it through the eyes of what's the decor, what is the curb appeal, how's the floor plan flow, do we need to bring in staging items in order to spruce the property up and make it look its best? Because the bottom line is what people see online, it's what's going to dictate if they're going to come to your door and physically look at the property. And sometimes it's a lack of showings, and maybe the online presence is just not captivating enough to bring buyers to want to come to your door. Mm-hmm. The other piece of it could be maybe the market has changed, and as far as pricing goes, let's face it, everyone wants to make the most on their home. There's no question about that. But at the end of the day, price is king. And even if it is a floor plan that's maybe not perfect, even if the property has some flaws, even if it's not sitting on the best lot, at the end of the day, price pretty much fixes it all. So as we're entering into this summer season, I think it's imperative to have a fresh set of eyes, come in and analyze the property for what the property is, and really look realistically, because this is your second shot at it. You've already got a shelf life with the property and some staleness factor that's trailing the property. So this is your opportunity, if you really need to sell the property, to be very objective, realistic, and true to the market. And if you will follow the instructions of a good realtor that knows the market well and take some advice from a staging person, I think that by grooming up your yard, getting rid of those old fall leaves and pruning back those bushes, fresh mulch, freshening the paint on your front door, making certain that the property is clean. A clean property goes a long way. And especially when a property has been on the market for a while in the spring, if it's been vacant, it just kind of has this layer of dust that's on it that just needs to be revived and freshened up. So looking at it through that perspective, and then doing a brand new market analysis to figure out exactly where the pricing is today and what your competition is that you're up against.
Yeah. And sometimes you just need a new perspective, a fresh set of eyes, like Bev said, a whole team of people to come in and tell you, here's your game plan. This is what we need to do.
And you need several opinions too. I mean, it's one of those things where it's, sometimes it's personal opinion, but there are a few staple things in a property that tends to be the core things that keeps a home from selling. It has to have great curb appeal. The landscaping needs to look great. It needs to be clean on the inside. The paint, in my opinion, needs to be neutralized. Any, blatant flaws that you're aware of that a buyer's going to pick up on, those need to be repaired or fixed. And if not, then tag that properly accordingly and let people know that the pricing has been adjusted according to the condition of the property. Not everyone's in the position to do all the things that's required or needed to spruce up the property, but I think if you price it accordingly and just let the general buyer public know that you've taken that into account, that will go a long way in getting your property sold and getting a reasonable offer in the end.
Absolutely. So let's switch gears a little bit here and talk about the other side of things.
Sure.
So now, say I'm a buyer.
Okay.
So if I am just now getting to the point where I'm ready to start looking at properties, inventory isn't quite as plentiful now with new listings coming on the market, especially if I'm a first-time home buyer. Mm-hmm. So what are my options now at this point in the year?
Well, I think personally, hiring the services of a good realtor can go a long way in this process with the buyer for many reasons. I think that from a realtor's perspective, you have a little bit more access to inventory. So it's a matter of reaching out to possibly for sale by owners right now that have their properties on the market. It is actually contacting some of your past clients that you've sold properties in the past that have thought about selling in the future. Maybe they're not quite ready to put it on the market, but if they had a viable buyer right away, you could do a one-time showing and basically show a property. I know we've sold a handful of those this spring that way, that, we contacted some of our clients and asked if they would be willing to sell, and they were, if they didn't have to put it on the market. So sometimes the convenience is just as more important to people in that aspect. I think relying on our realtor community as far as reaching out and letting other realtors in our community know what your wants and needs are with your buyers. I think it's a matter of really kind of digging a little bit deeper and finding other resources, because just because something's not in the MLS system does not mean that's where you stop. I mean, I've gone as far as if people say, hey, I really like this neighborhood, I love this school district, but I just can't find, a home on the market. I've literally gone door knocking street by street, knocking on doors and leaving a letter on the door stating, if you're interested in selling your home, I've got a buyer that's ready to buy. You would be amazed at how many people respond to that. And I've sold several properties that way just simply by door knocking. So I think it's one of those things where you need someone in your corner that is persistent in helping you try to find what you're looking for, and basically just be on the watch every day so that something doesn't pass you by. Because the odds are, if you're looking for something that's hard to find, there's probably going to be lots of other buyers that are in your same situation. And that's where, depending on the price point, you can run into that multiple offer situation if it's a unique property or if it's in that price range of the 250 and below. The one thing too that I think right now is selling very well, I'm kind of switching gears a little bit, is the small acreage property. So if you have a small acreage property, say 5-10 acres or under, and you're wanting to put that on the market and sell, this is the time of the year. It seems like in the summer months, it's usually late spring and into the summer months when those properties are very popular and in demand. So that's another kind of a tip to know too, is it's great timing to put that on, because there's just more buyers that are willing to make school changes and, that school's out and re-enroll for this fall, etc.
Yeah, they are hugely popular right now.
Yes, they are. We've had a couple that's gone on the market and they didn't hardly last a day. So yes, if you have a small acreage property, you're probably in pretty good shape right now. So yeah.
Okay, well, do you have anything else to add?
Well, I think the main thing to remember is that real estate, guys, is always local. I know the national trends right now are talking about how robust the real estate market is, that, prices are certainly appreciating, that inventory and most all price ranges are moving pretty quickly. You have to consider the source of where we're located. So we are, in mid-Missouri, in the Midwest, and, we're basically here at the end of the spring market, starting the summer market. And real estate's local. So you have to think about what's going on in our local economy and what's driving the market. And right now, I have to say, probably the biggest pressure on the market for us right here is just knowing that interest rates have increased and that they are anticipated to take another, at least 1 or 2 more rate hikes before the end of the year. And so especially if you're kind of that move up buyer and looking to make a larger purchase, that's where I think finding something and getting locked in before the rates goes up too much will certainly make an impact over your long-term repayment of your loan over the life of the loan. So that's certainly something to consider. But I think in general, I have to say we've been very fortunate here in Columbia and Boone County as far as sales goes throughout history. I've been in the business now 25 years this year, and I have to say I've never seen a bad market per se, even when times got tough back in 06 through like 09 and through 10, we still had a very good market considering what was going on with the national economy and just, we've always had a very healthy, strong economy here in Columbia overall. Obviously, there's always some bumps in the road. You kind of hit a few bumps here and there with either job losses or, businesses going out of town or, things of that nature. So there's always going to be some little hiccups along the way, but we're very fortunate that the community that we're in, that real estate is very stable here for the most part and very sellable. So the key is always to, to buy right. If you possibly can, you want to certainly buy when you can get the best price and buy it correctly. And if you can, you always want to sell at the peak of the market. But, life happens and you have to do what you have to do. But, obviously real estate does sell all year long. So we're just kind of in that second cycle of the year. And then, we'll hit that next cycle when it's back to school again. So just kind of be aware of that. And I think just make your decisions accordingly.
Yeah, agreed.
Okay.
All right.
Well, very good. Well, thank you very much, Marla, for joining me this morning. We appreciate your time and joining us with Breakfast with Bev. So thank you so much for tuning in, and we'll look very forward to seeing you next week. Have a wonderful weekend and a very happy Memorial Day. Have fun and be safe.